Good morning, one and all. We are here to commence the second day, session 1, with our speaker, Dr. A. Senthil Kumaran, the Chief Confluencer and the co-founder of the Learners Conference, Bangalore, Karnataka. He will be speaking on transforming education. Now, may I request the Principal of New Indian School, Mr. Gopinathan Menon, to introduce the first speaker for the day, who will also be moderating during the question and answer session. Sir, please.
Very good morning to each and everyone. Honorable Chairman of CBSE Gulf Council, Secretary, Chapter Convener Bahrain, and Chapter Conveners from all countries, and dear colleagues. Wonderful morning, and it's an honor and privilege to introduce Dr. A. Senthil Kumaran, Chief Coach, Mentor, and whatnot. There's a big profile about Dr. A. Senthil Kumaran here, but I will give a gist of his profile so that you all need to know who Dr. Senthil Kumaran is. With over 3 decades of experience in the educational field, Dr. Senthil has groundbreaking work in the field of education. He formed an educational initiative called as Learners Confluence, which is based in Bahrain. And he keeps traveling most of the time, and he has acted as a mentor and coach to many teachers and principals. So please put your hands together and welcome Dr. A. Senthil Kumaran. Currently, he is in Mumbai, again, ready to do a session tomorrow. So he said that he readily consented to be with principals because he is always there for education. He started his career with educational background, and then he moved on to the CII, which is the Confederation of Indian Industries, representing quality education and Center of Excellence. He has also led delegations to Singapore and Finland, taking teachers, mentoring them. His capacity building initiatives, leadership qualities, and a lot of able initiatives have helped both students, teachers, parents, and principals. So we are very fortunate to have him here, and I'm sure all of you are looking forward to listen to him and hear from him. Have a wonderful day ahead. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Gopinath. Can I go ahead and start?
Sir, please start, sir. All over
Thank you. Yeah, thank you very much. And good to be back here after meeting most of the principals at the Oman conference. Thank you, Bahrain chapter, for inviting me to be here. First of all, little apologies from my side because I had to catch a flight from Bangalore to Mumbai, and I've just landed into the Mumbai and the hotel. And I thought that I should address this particular important area. And when the request came in, I said it's always good to go back and talk to our own leaders from our own community, because that helps quite a lot, all of us, to appreciate each other, the kind of work, whatever we have been kind of doing. I have a short presentation and just a minute, let me start with that. I think you may have to give me the rights for sharing the screen, please, or make me co-host alternative. Thank you. One. Thank you once again, and let's get into the session straight away. I have another 45 minutes to basically take you through quickly some of on my thoughts, specifically post-COVID scenario, and when the schools are trying to settle down. A lot of challenges are being talked about. I think it's very important for us to spend some time together and do a little bit of manthan on trying to find out what works, what doesn't work. So when this particular topic was shared with me, I was really thinking, where are we and what kind of things have been done? Because post-COVID or during COVID, pre-COVID, the scenarios were quite different for all of us. And it was very important for us to spend some time to reflect what worked, what has not worked. It also brought in a lot of thought processes as such. Just to take you quickly into the session. First of all, thank you once again to everybody out there for the invitation. Just a disclaimer, which I think for the people who attended my session in the past surely know about it, that all the ideas, whatever I'm sharing it here, it is like our own internal research, our own thought processes, our own practices, which we have worked with different kinds of school across the country and outside the country. During this session, there is no way any product or service is not being promoted out here. So that's also something. So if at all, if I'm referring to any one particular organization or one particular thing, it is only just as an example. The third important thing, I have taken a lot of images per se as such from the World Wide Web. So credit to all the people. And if at all, if any practice is being spoken, and if that particular practice is happening in your campus, it is purely coincidental. It is not reference to any one of you. So with that particular perspective, let's get into the session straight away. Where are we today? I think the whole scenario is quite different when we try to talk about pre-COVID and post-COVID. And after COVID, the scenario, particularly in education, has seen a lot of changes. But as being a teacher, I've been always positive because there were a lot of things in our sector which we have been trying to talk about, saying that we will not use technology. We were averse to technology. We said, so many companies came in, so many organizations came in, so many foundations came in, trying to talk about saying that we would like technology to be part and parcel of everything. But none of us were bothered about it. It was as simple as using a clip in between a PPT or a clip, using a small, a video in between. But today, I think technology, the COVID actually changed quite a lot of perspective. COVID also expected us to go back to the basics. It actually made us to realize, it made us to kind of think through and say that, no, it cannot be the same what you were trying to do earlier. So a lot of myths which were running around, whether it was in our personal life, professional life, all these went through a big shift. And that's something very important. In all this confusion, luckily, we also had a new education policy getting announced, and we have already started seeing a lot of small initiatives have been initiated by CBSE and government at multiple levels. The good thing is that a lot of learning in the past, which were not followed as basics, kind of came up. So let's get into understand this particular point that post-COVID, one of the things which has happened is our vocabulary has shifted quite a lot. Over the period of last 2.5 years, one thing which has happened is that it has started bringing in new beliefs and behavioral changes in the way we start looking at our children, our own family members, and the community. Go back and reflect, ask this particular question to you. When the government said that only 30 people can come for a function, how many of you got the invitation for a wedding in your own families? And suddenly we realized that we are not even in the list of 30 people in our own families, where we were, celebrating quite a lot. So this particular whole thought kind of, made people to think that we really need to kind of rework the way we have been kind of working so far. Not only this, it also started impacting on our own vocabulary. I think one of the classic things which happened in one of the schools in Rajkot was the junior school teacher, one of the young teachers, she went to the classroom and she told this children who have never walked into the classroom and said that silence, but no silence worked with this particular young teacher. And there's a coordinator who walks into this particular classroom and she says, mute. And then you find that there's a huge shift. People just became, silent. So the new vocabulary, what is that being kind of used is mute, not silence. The most interesting thing which were, happened in another school was children, after giving attendance saying present ma'am, just went around the classroom a couple of times and came back and sat down in their own position. So when the teacher was trying to understand from the child and from the parent, it was very interesting that during the online session, when the schools were compelling students to raise hands, keep their camera on while giving attendance, they also raised hand. And after that, this kid used to go around the sofa and his bedroom and then come and sit. Now he wants to continue the same practice that is happening. Every 20 minutes, he wants to use a washroom. Every 20 minutes, he wants to open his tiffin box. Now, this is where actually what is happening, the new whole thought process. When I was doing a session in one particular school, particularly on bridging learning loss, I asked this particular question to the senior management team. I said, would you allow your children to have lunch or snack when the classes are going on? I think the opinion was completely divided. So the policies are something again very, very important, which really required a lot of reflections to be done and worked upon. The new things which started happening around this also was quite interesting. Like this is a Brahmin certainly in a hotel in Bangalore. Recently, when I went to this particular hotel to have a snack in the evening, I found this new kind of a board which was available there, which was not talking about the rate list, but which was talking about the temperatures of different employees. Just to repose that faith in the people, all the people who are there in this particular hotel are not, affected in any particular way. The other thing, what has started happening around us is people have started losing patience. People are saying, I need it now. That's it. There's no questions to be asked. And I think most of you might have read in India, most of you might have read across India in different cities, the kind of patience levels, which is kind of going down, when it comes to students and children killing their own parents, children, shooting down a warden for not allowing to wish his mother on her birthday. So all these things are something which is kind of happening. In one particular school, it was very disturbing to see when a principal called up, early morning to say that yesterday we had a big fight in our campus only for substitution duty in the examination scenario. So when we are trying to talk about substitution duty and examination scenario, I think we really need to understand this particular perspective that things are different. Things are not same. So the seniors and juniors actually practically had they were almost getting physical only for a simple thing, examination substitution, which is such a small thing in a school and which is a routine. Now, everybody is trying to talk also about this particular kid, loss happening. But one thing which is, there is a loss which has happened. And most of the organizations which are conducting national-wide, I don't want to mention any company across the country, they are saying that 15 to 20% variation from earlier years to now, this year is visible in the campuses. And we really need to understand that this particular thing is going to stay here. So whatever has happened for last 3 years will take another 18 months, particularly for us to kind of get back. All this is okay, but there is one particular person who is, fuming and getting disturbed is this particular teacher. And hardly people are trying to talk about teacher burnout. And I think this is something which is becoming a big challenge for schools. Nobody is, trying to say this time examination schedules were like that teachers never got even holiday for 10 days. So some schools have kind of evolved quite well and started looking at these things much in a better way. So we really need to understand that how are you trying to go back and look at the teacher burnout? I'm not very sure about it. But some things which have come up is like a couple of examples which I would like to kind of touch upon is one example is that in a school, when I walked up on October 21, when I walked up into one of the campuses of a school in Hyderabad, I think it was very interesting to see that there was a BMI scores were put on the staff room outside the principal's room. They had a BMI, the top 10 people who are, managing their BMI index quite well. So that itself was very interesting. So I asked the principal, what is this particular thing? So she said, I think, we have now given a wristband or a health band for most of the teachers so that they are supposed to clock, and they give a very nominal thing just to motivate people. It is not only financials, but going beyond financials, which was very important for people to look at it. Few initiatives which schools have taken up is that theme for the year in one particular school is year of catching up. This is a school in Madurai, which basically talks about that we are not going to do anything new initiative this year. We would like to go back, spend some time and catch up whatever that we were not able to do in last, 3 years per se, or 2.5, 3 years. Some schools have started saying that this year is going to be more of a scaffolding when it comes to student, when it comes to teacher. So I think it's very important for us to understand that we really need to relook at it. Let's not try to get into textbooks and start walking into the classroom. Another school in Ludhiana, it's ICC school, where they are celebrating something called as Detox Ludhiana. So they have started 1 month, they had an initiative with the children. The second month they had with the parents. Now this month they are going to have, once the July, when they reopen, they are trying to get the grandparents also to be part and parcel of it. So such initiatives, when you try to talk about, are, some of the initiatives which are very, very interestingly being taken. The whole idea has been that how can we turn learning loss into learning gain, whether it comes from the teacher, whether it comes from the students. But what one of the things very interesting which happened was on the technology front, uh, that most of the senior teachers, the teachers who were very senior, who were the heroes and heroines in the campus, suddenly became, zero. Not zero in the real sense, but when it came to technology, all these chutku putku who were, playing with mobiles and playing with technology, they became the new set of hero and heroines in the campus. Now, this is exactly what was required. And I think I salute each one of you and your teachers. Please convey my wishes to all the teachers that who all are there in your team. Please go back and tell them, thank you very much from my side, because they were not empowered to handle a technology, the way it was supposed to be handled. They did very beautiful engagement. So over technology, learning, I'm not very sure about it, but beautiful engagement happened and teachers actually worked quite well. The senior teachers, experience, and junior teachers, technology, schools actually leverage quite well. It was very interesting. Like today also, if somebody says that, can you do a presentation from the mobile on Zoom and share screen? I don't know how exactly to do it. But there is a teacher in a small town like Kadalur. She was running her classrooms only with mobile. So what exactly happened was that all these things, how exactly can we take as a learning and start working on, is something very important for all of us to look at it. But the focus for my discussion today is going to be all about school education. In school education, if you try to look at in India particularly, or Indian schools across the globe, one of the things which has been happening is that we have been very, very aspirational. We wrote so much of English when it came to vision, mission, values, and multiple researchers also have shown that the kind of curriculum that has been, looked at in Indian schools, it's something which is at a very, very, very aspirational. And thanks to all these people who keep conducting, Olympiads and all those stuff, they have been also kind of increasing without even understanding whether it was age appropriate or not. So we really need to understand that this is the exact scenario. The image, what you're seeing, is the exact scenario that we have a lot of aspirations. We don't have the know-how. How exactly are we going to go back and work on it? The second important thing is that the economics of education has changed quite a lot. Now people actually tried working, like, two classes were put together, 60 children, 30 children in one class. You put together 60 and you ran. The fees were not coming in. The challenges were quite high in terms of, the revenue model. Teachers suddenly got laid off, principals got laid off, salaries got cut, a lot of things happened. So that means there was a challenge. There was a challenge on economics, and I think I'll surely touch upon when I come to technology, that it has given rise to a new kind of schooling system, which is an online school. And I'll surely share some example. But the economics of education, suddenly people started becoming very, very cautious. Very, very cautious. And limited research in our own team, in our own institutions which we consult with, we have found out that schools which were following the basics right have actually been able to get into 98%, up to 98%. They were able to get the fees getting collected. But in many other places, people did discounts, people did, come out. And it was very difficult. I think many of principals, if somebody is going to come back and say, a regulator will come back and say that you have 1.5 crore surplus, you have to please go back and distribute among 4,000 students of yours. I think it's not very easy for a principal to go back and tell the child or the parent that we have taken excess money. And this happened in Gujarat. So which I'm referring to a school specifically from Gujarat, where the fee regulatory authority has actually put a lot of clips. So the economics of education across the country is going to change quite a lot, has changed quite a lot. Coming to the hardcore academics, I think we have been writing objectives. Suddenly the objective, LO, when it came in, as per the, new education policy, many people struggled. And achieving LO has become like a playing kabaddi. Kabaddi jaise khelte hain, like that. Somehow we have to go and kind of, make that particular thing happen. That's the whole thought actually, which we did, which was wrong. And we never even understood why LO was being kind of, necessitated. So far, as part of our lesson plan, there was some place to fill up. There was the rows and columns. We just filled in and we said, okay, the lesson plan is over, without even understanding. So this was one such challenge which our sector actually went through. The next important thing is that learning world to world of work, the situation was something like this. Most of us had, it's the same that the boy, whatever situation he is going through, the same kind of situation all of us, the most of the students were in, because most of the students never knew how to connect the learning world to the world of work. Because this huge gap of application orientation was something which was a big challenge for all of us. Big challenge for all of us. Because theory to practice, theory to application was not happening at all. In many cases, people struggled. Even if it was a competitive examination to get through, people will do it. Earlier, there were only 2 examinations or 3 examinations. Now, don't worry, with CUET coming in, for every degree college, for every degree course in the country, you will have to make sure that your children are going to go ahead and do it. It was very disturbing to see. It was very disturbing to see when multiple choice questions were introduced. Many schools did 3 times, 4 times preparatory examinations for multiple choice also. Now, I think that was not expected. That was not expected from schools. Now, imagine, if the new education policy in the letter and spirit gets, implemented, then next 4 years, 9, 10, 11, 12, 4 into 2, 8 examinations every 6 months, one's examination. How many preparatory are you going to go back and think that? I'm not very sure about it. So we really need to think and understand that we may have to kind of relook at it, rework on it. So even if the CBSE says, I know that I'm on a CBSE forum, but even if CBSE says, you need to know that what are some of the key concepts which have to be achieved, acquired by the kid so that the learning loss doesn't happen. For them, it may be like, reducing few chapters. It is not reducing. Maybe the depth of the subject, depth of the concepts need to actually kind of get reduced. And that's something, one more area we really need to look at it. The process orientation is not at all there. So the situation is so confusing that many people would love to create such situations in their own respective campuses. So we really need to know that, everything, there are only 2 or 3 people who are responsible for it. Even if a power is being given, if there is a committee which is being made, or if a club or an organization is being made for that, for a structure has been created, there are 2 people who run that particular whole thing. So I'm not very sure how much process orientation people actually did. See, when MCQ got introduced, it was all the effort should have been on craft. How to craft MCQ should have been the purpose, not how to crack MCQ, which is being done by the tuition centers, which is done by the coaching center. For them, the purpose is different. For them, cracking an examination is different. For us, you and me, I think it was very important for us to ensure what is the kind of learning which happened and how exactly it is going to happen. I'm sure that yesterday you might have heard your team, CBSE officials talking about results coming in. I'm not very sure when the whole thing is going to come up. Because one of the things which is going to happen is that what percentage of first year and first term and what percentage of second term is actually trying to be looked at it. We are not even sure about it. And I think you may be much more well-versed than me, because yesterday you had a long day with all of them trying to share what exactly is the journey. So process orientation is almost minimal. It is driven by individuals, and as soon as the individual walks out, there is a vacuum which gets created. One more thing which is very, very important is the resource crunch. While NEP talks about, 30 children, 40 children, continuous evaluation, tracking, all those things are happening. Resource crunch is something very, very important. People don't know where exactly to look for what kind of resources. So it's very important for us to understand that what kind of resources are required and how exactly it is supposed to be done. So one of the challenges which schools have, particularly, I know that in the Middle East, the little travel, what I've done for last 10, 15 years in that particular segment, what I have felt is that, yes, the volume, the number is quite high, but the kind of resources, the kind of facilities which is supposed to be given, I think there's a huge gap. Even the people's preparedness, teachers' preparedness to handle more than 60 children, I think is not being designed on. If you're 40, I think you're still much better. But people more than 40, I think we are not actually trying to look for. So whenever we try to talk about resources, it's not only about infrastructure, it's also about the teacher, on whom, him or her, how much are we trying to do the investment. And that's my next point, that this is a kind of a thing which we are trying to do. We are trying to bring a huge change. We are trying to bring a huge change by a little support to that particular teacher. So the investment on the teacher is almost, I should say, minimal. And thanks to technology, today 1,000 people attending, 2,000 people attending. I don't know whether it was a preaching session or whether it was actually a learning session. So that's something which we really need to kind of look at it, that please invest on your teachers. And if you're not going to do the investment on teachers, you're not going to go ahead. So this is one more major challenge which is there specifically in Indian schools across the country, willingness to do the investment. Willingness to do the investment. Fine, there are people who are coming forward and giving you free sessions. It's not free. Please understand this particular perspective, that it is not free. It is not free because there is something which he or she is going to come back and ask you for a little later. So it's a question of time. Today he is doing the investor. He is trying to sow a seed which he or she will come back and ask you with interest over a period of time. So when you are trying to do that choice of, I think this is where very, very important is the teacher standard, specifically when it comes to teachers. Investing on teachers is something very, very important, which we really need to do. For that, I think one of the very important things which you may have to do, which I will talk in a few slides from now, is going to be all about how do we try to first create something called as a teacher professional standards for our own school. My suggestion to the council would be, the Gulf Council would be, whoever is the new set of office bearers taking up, that I think you should quickly come up with something called as a Gulf region. The Gulf region, if any teacher who comes in, what are some of the teacher professional standards? Don't go by the traditional methods. Don't go by with the traditional methods of trying to say that a BA, BSc, BEd or the regulators requirement. I think it is a good idea to create something which is common. A little variation country to country you can actually do. And I think that will make a lot of sense for all of us to kind of reflect. Because if you're going to go and do a lot of time there, that will help you to try to do what kind of investment you actually require. Be a little scientific, take time. Results don't come so quickly. So you really need to go back and kind of work on it. When it comes to quality, this is the kind of a scenario that we are trying to look at. We're trying to show something which is in the the front end, and behind there's nothing. On the name of, I'm sorry to say, use this particular example, but this is the reality what we are trying to go. We don't have quality practices. There is no measurement mechanisms. We are trying to do more of compliance when it comes to affiliating board, the regulator in that part of the world. But how many of us actually are going back and trying to strengthen our practices? And thanks to all these people who have been kind of, freely and liberally been offering those awards and recognitions. I think thanks to them, I don't know how they it's a big challenge for us also to even find, to coin a name, but the kind of category of schools, the kind of things what they are trying to create now. I think it's very, very important. There's a very interesting saying in Hindi, मुर्दे को आप कितना भी तैयार करके रखो, थोड़ी देर बाद बदबू मारे. And the same thing happens with the quality also. Over a period of time, if you are going to go back and see, if you're not going to go back and do real investment in your systems and processes, even if you live, the school must run, practices must be live. And I think that's something very, very important. So don't try to do this kind of quality certification or other things. Don't do it hollow. Spend the time and strengthen practices. It may take 3 years, but invest on that. But the most interesting thing is that we get satisfied like this. मैं अपनी favorite हूँ और मेरा अच्छा है. That's something very, very easy for people to say, but that is not the reality. That's not the reality. It is a very, very short-term kind of a thought process which we really need to look at it. Together as a community of leaders from that Gulf region and across the country today, who are attending and who will be seeing this particular video a little later, my request is that go back and look at all those slides which I have shared with you. You have to sit back and actually reflect, and that will be quite helpful for you to look at it. Today, we really need to handle this kind of a scenario, classrooms, Guru and Shishyas, then it started becoming small cohort. But today, I think the learner is connected much, 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 much better. So the new thought process, in case if you want to look at it, your profile of your student is something like this, who has moved from one teacher to getting connected, and thanks to WhatsApp group. I think one of the things which many of you might have observed, or if you have not observed, ask your teachers, that when Google Forms got introduced in the schools for assessment, many children knew that once you submit, all the answers will come. All the answers will come. So they will immediately take a screenshot and put it in the unofficial WhatsApp group for others to answer. That was trying to cheat ourselves. People also knew how to press Control U to get all the answers on the next tab, and then they answer. So they had a better network. So probably our profile of a student itself is changing quite a lot. So if the child is going to be connected, then I think we really need to look at it. All this talks about is that somewhere we have not followed our basics. We have not followed our basics, and that has been our challenge. We moved away. We've kept on adding, and somewhere we lost our focus. And that's where if the whole transformation has to happen, we need to go back to basics. What kind of a basics that is supposed to be done? We have been at this particular level at education 1.0, as per the author, Harkin's theory of University of Minnesota. His research, he talks about we are only following still at this level. COVID compelled us to move into internal enabled. It was only internal. Still, it was not a tool. It was only a technology tool which we are using, and technology actually was not happening. Many people say, oh, we have a great technology. No, you were only using a technology tool. You were using only a technology tool, not actually technology. If it was technology, then you would have been surely able to assess what kind of learning actually happened. And that's a classic example for this. Not only this, we have to move from these two to these two next areas. One is knowledge producing. We have been always trying to look at Akshay Patra. Kitna nikalna nikal lo. Kitna log usko refill kar rahe hain? How much are we trying to create? I'm not very sure about it. So from there, the next area which we really need to look at it, how exactly we can kind of look at it. Because when you try to look at this kind of education 4.0, go back and do a little research. Today is not the day to get into detail on it, but go back and do a little study that you'll be able to understand all the skill sets, all the skill sets which NEP is also trying to talk about will be important for, to look at this kind of education scenario which we have to kind of evolve. So this is something very, very important. And that's where we will move from education 1.0 to 4.0. People who have understanding of OECD and PISA will surely understand that this is a framework which is available. It's a 60-page document you can download from OECD website. It's freely available. And again, if you try to look at it, KSA or knowledge, skills, attitude, and values, and again, how exactly it is being tried to talk about. If you look at the key elements of this, you will be able to appreciate that all this is something which NEP is trying to talk about. But if you forget about NEP, few years back, were we not supposed to do all this? Were we not supposed to work on some of these areas? I'm not very sure about it. Suddenly we were, we wanted to talk about emotion, social skill, life skill, or all these were existing. We killed SUPW some time back. We brought in a new avatar and said that, okay, this is the life skill which is supposed to be done. Now, if you go to a country like Finland, which talks about home economics, Singapore talks about home economics. And if you try to look at our own new education policy, there also we are trying to talk about these kind of skill sets to be available with the kids. And I think that's something very, very important. Not only this, we can't be just complaining about it. We can't be complaining about it. We really need to go back and actually. Can we mute people? Yeah. So I think it's very important that we can't be complaining about it, but we really need to go back and we actually need to go back and bridge this particular gap. So how are we going to go back and look at it? The first and the foremost thing, which according to me, based on limited experience in this particular space, is assessments. Assessments is something which I think we really need to go back and reflect. Why are we trying to talk about the assessments? Are we serious about the assessment and how exactly assessment needs to happen? How exactly people need to be trained on assessment is something very, very important. We have been always trying to say that it is teaching and learning. It is teaching. There is one more thing which was existing in learning, which we never bothered about it, which was assessment. It was somewhere in between that learning process itself, but we never bothered about it. And now we are trying to talk about a 360 degree. I was talking to a few, eminent educationists in one particular forum, and then when I asked them what is this 360 degree feedback, they said, SWOT kar lo, sab kuch ho jaye. It is not about SWOT, please. It is a child who has to do self-assessment. It is the child who has to do peer assessment. A teacher has to give anecdotal reports. So go get ready for another innings of CCE. But my request is don't kill this time, because many of us are responsible for killing CCE in our schools or in CBSE or in ICSE. The simple reason being that people were not empowered. That's why I said we may need to do a lot of investment on teachers. If you're going to do investment, then probably you'll be able to appreciate. And now no more marks when you're going to do, maybe, I think this is my thought. We don't know. You may be much more experience. But when you go through the draft document of new education policy, which was in 2019 came out, very, very specifically talks about that 9, 10, 11, 12 is going to be more of, and the role of board itself may change, where it may become assessment and certification of kids. So till 9, they may have a lot of role to be played, but 9 to 12, it may become more of credits to be a 48 papers, 4 years, 6 papers every semester compulsorily. Choice of subjects going to be very, very wide, and the assessment practices itself will change. So we may really need to look at it that everybody will pass, but what level of competency he or she is going to get into is going to be something very, very important. So what your board does, what other things does, I would not like to comment anything at this particular stage, but I think it's a good idea for you to go back and spend some time on revisiting the assessment policy of your own school. And if you have to revisit the assessment policy, don't do Control C, Control V. Whatever is tried and tested somewhere else for a different environment may not be your own environment. You may take a concept from the West. Please take the concept, nothing wrong. If you can contextualize that particular concept, assessment practice in a given scenario for Gulf region as such, I think you will be able to appreciate the assessment itself is quite interesting to look at it. Not only this, I think this is a very interesting picture. Sorry that we are not able to have conversation, but I would have kind of loved to basically share that this is something which is going to happen. A man who is sleeping, his wife comes and pours. Now, this is nothing but a science which works here. What kind of a science work? An object that is rest will always stay at rest. And all this is nothing but unless an external force acts upon it. So what is this? What is this? So you may have to change the whole perspective. You may have to change the whole perspective. This is nothing but Newton's first law. This is nothing but Newton's first law, which basically talks about. So what is going to be important is in this whole exercise is that we have to start moving into something very, very important, experiential learning. And my request to all the people who are sitting there, please ask your teachers very specifically not to add an activity for the sake of activity and say experiential learning ho gaya. Nahi. मैंने एक glass उठाया और पानी पी लिया. Is that an experience? I'm not very sure about. लेकिन इस पानी पीने के बाद मेरे साथ क्या हो? मैंने क्या सोचा? What did I reflect? Is something very, very important, which we have to kind of work together, and then investment needs to be done. And if you try to look at the strands which have been created on 5 plus 3 plus 3 plus 4, you'll be able to appreciate that the right from early years, it was activity based. And then when you go to the highest level, that is between 6 to 8, in that particular segment, you talk about experiential. And when you go to the highest level, you talk about multidisciplinary, you're talking about integration of subjects, you're talking about integration of art, you're talking about integration of music. And my request to all the principals is, when you go back to your teachers, please tell them that let them not try to find relations. That integration ke liye, we don't have to do the exercise. What we do when we go for looking out for a girl or boy for marriage. कि किसी के मामा की बेटी की बहन की छोटी भाई का जो अंकल है उनके जो भांजे है ना उनके भांजे की बेटी से, that is not going to work. Experiential education is all about integration, is all about you have to have a direct connect. So in this whole process, you may have to invest again on your teacher, and that's something very important. You really need to look at it. We're also moving, as I already shared, that we are also moving towards competency-based education system, which is going to be very important for all of us to kind of do investment. So this again, very, very, somewhere we were supposed to write skills and our objectives, but somewhere we were not writing. Now, now post NEP, and I'm sure one circular from CBSE, all of us will start aligning with that. I may have a little disagreements on many of the points which has been done by your board, but that's okay. That's a purely an academic dialogue. We are still looking for an competency-based education vertical framework. I'm looking for a competency framework. If that can be given, then schools can start looking at what exactly, how exactly they are supposed to contextualize that particular framework with respect to what their aspirations are. And so that's where it is not only LO likh liya, assessment likh liya, wo blue book ko kar liya. No, it is not about that. It will require a lot of practice changes in your thing. So that's why I said, don't look at trying to go back into that blue book and then try to say that, okay, हमने एक LO उठा लिया, उसका एक assessment कर लिया. No, it's not going to work like that. आपके practices को, your own practices, you may have to kind of rework on that. Lot of things which you have to do is that a lot of contextualization need to be done. I have been talking about this quite a lot. I think in my last conference also, I had addressed at the Oman, when I addressed, I talked about this. The history of the local country really needs to be looked at. So in your case, I think Gulf Council really need to kind of quickly ramp up, because with new education policy coming in, I think you may need to have 40% of Indian local history will be something which is going to become very, very important. Not only this, people have to go back and spend some time. People may have to go back and spend a lot of time in contextualizing whatever is happening. So you may have an example. I think somewhere NCRT books were doing a great job in terms of writing, a concept was written in form of a story, and people were finding value, because if it was a train journey, the train journey also had a lot of things to cover and child to actually pick up from them. So a lot of contextualization will be required. When it comes to integration, I've already talked about it. Integration should be so seamless. People should not be able to kind of find out. This itself will compel you. Integration will compel you to go back and do verticalization of your departments. So far, we have been working in compartments. So far, we have been working in small silos and trying to say that, okay, this is pre-primary, this is primary, this is middle school, this is high school, and maths department never knew what exactly was happening in their own segment. English never knew what exactly is supposed to be done. Now, what exactly needs to be done is that you may have to go back and start looking at verticalization of department. Every department has to be verticalized. And once you verticalize, then you try to find out what are the common concepts and then get into integration. So don't try to do that integration of, connecting kisi ka music kar liya, kisi ka kuch kar liya, and, do ki poonch band di and then said, okay, we have done integration and upload it as an evidence. I think that is not integration. Integration really need to be very, very seamless. The new thought process which is going to happen, which will be needed, is personalization. We have been talking about personalization. We have been talking about differentiation. I'm not very sure how many of us were rolling out more than 2 worksheets in our own classrooms, or how many question paper levels of assessment technique. That's why I said I started my session by saying the assessment. So if you have to do personalized learning, at least Middle East, I'm aware that the SEN activities and other departments are quite active. Otherwise, the regulator is very active. So we have to be a little more cautious about this whole thought process of saying what kind of personalization you have to look at. So when we are trying to talk about Indian schools, I think one of the very, very important steps which is required is personalization. And in NEP, if you try, we have been trying, most of the school, when I go and ask, do you have a student portfolio? Yes, sir, we have student portfolio. What do you have in student portfolio? We have only the marks, report cards getting entered over a period of time, and few schools which is little mature may have few evidences been added in that particular folder. Maybe some of them may add a health record also. So we really need to understand this particular perspective. How are we going to go back and actually work on it is something very important. So personalization is going to be one of the very, very important. The key thing which is going to happen is collaboration. I think CBSE, you might have seen already, this is getting reflected in your CBSE circular, where you are being expected to sign up with one more school in another part of the country. I still remember as a student of Kendra Vidyalaya, and 1987, I still remember, we were supposed to remember 2 states and 1 country. 2 states and 1 country we were supposed to actually do, and this was part of a social science project, and Kendra Vidyalaya Sangathan used to do this particular activity. Things existed. That's why I said things existed. I still remember when it came to, when I was a student, I think I got Pondicherry, Assam, and Pakistan. These are the 3 country was Pakistan, and the 2 other things, three things I did as a project, where I had to do a Tarbela Dam of Pakistan to be kind of put across, and then, I had to do as a model. So all this has been existing. Collaboration is going to be the key. So it is not going to be saying that I'm going to be a king and queen of my fort. No, it's not going to work. It's not going to work. So the new thing is going to be collaborate. And one of the very important thing is that get shameless for learning. Then only collaboration. I think it requires a lot of guts to tell people that I know that I don't know. It requires a lot of guts to say that I know that I don't know. And I think we really need to work at it, and it has to be reflected in all the practices at the leadership level. I know that in Gulf region, how many so-called successful people who left India went there, and they were not able to survive there for 2 years, and they just walked back to India. So it is not about in a given terrain, we'll be much more very, very comfortable. We should be willing to collaborate, not only for teaching learning practice, but also on administrative practices and other practices, which will be very, very important for us to look at it. Technology. I think everybody is trying to talk about technology. I'm not here to talk about any gyan about technology. I think all of you are well versed with technology. Only thing which I'm going to try to asking you to look at is the disruption which will be created because of technology. The disruption which is going to be created with technology. I'm not making a mention of a school, but there is already an online school. There's already an online school with 13,000 students in last 3 years admitted into that particular area. And I'm aware, because I work with this particular school, I'm aware that they are catering to 54 countries. They're catering to 54 countries. They are catering to, and over 13,000 plus students they have already. I'm not very sure that whether CBSE and national boards will give clearances for them, but parents are willing to do the investment. But one thing which you really need to look at it, such schools will come up, but they will not come. Right now, I can tell you, because when I try to look at the profile of people, a lot of Middle East students, because the cost of education in Middle East is becoming expensive day by day, day by day, day by day. And there is a huge opportunity because this particular school charges only around 30 to 35,000 per child per academic year. And the child is able to pursue. So many people from the Middle East market have already started moving into this new online kind of format. The parents are very, very clear that they want to go back to an iOS kind of a program. Why should we go for CBSE? So the disruption which I'm trying to talk about is not only going to be the way you are trying to do. So please understand, taking a class online through a Zoom or any other platform is not technology. It's not technology. If technology is supposed to make your life, it should be able to help your increase your productivity. It should help you to increase your quality. It should help you to reduce your financials, the burdens, whatever you have. It should try to increase, reduce your work, what your teachers does. And many of us even, it should increase the satisfaction of people. Because when I was trying to, do a assessment of the whole year with this particular school, which I kind of work with, it was very interesting to see that the students conducted a farewell for a virtual teacher. They were conducting a farewell for a virtual teacher, but normally in a regular school, we might have heard of a farewell given to a teacher, regular teacher. But that's going to be something very, very important. They already have virtual labs, they have virtual mechanisms, and I was told, I think 3 days back at CBSE also, they are starting something on a app-based story reading thing. A pilot has already been done. That's something which I read it in one particular closed group network where I saw that they are trying to come up. So every time when a child is going to read the CBSE, we have been talking about Padega Bharat. I know Badega Bharat, but probably there was no assessment method to calculate how many hours of reading and what is the output of it. Maybe CBSE may. The pilot is already started. That's what I was made to understand. But I think it's very important for us to kind of understand this particular perspective that technology is here to stay. Technology is here to stay. So please, in your budget, at least keep some component. When you don't worry about the brick and mortar. Brick and mortar will survive. It will be there. You don't have to worry about it. Because what these schools are trying to focus is the gap what is been existing in brick and mortar. The child is not able to go and play cricket. The child is not able to play football. The child is not able to go for a dance, not able to pursue any hobby of his or her, is actually going to move into this kind of a school. And that's, I think, something very, very important, which we really need to look at it. Not only this, just give me 1 minute. One minute, please. I'm sorry, I'm in a hotel, so probably I'll take a minute to. So I think it's going to be very, very important for us to do this kind of investment when it comes to technology. And please go back and start reworking on your budgets when it comes to technology. And I think it will be important for you to kind of look at it. And if you try to see whatever I have said, maybe as a disruption or transforming, is actually very beautifully covered in the new education policy. People are using different color shades for trying to say that new education policy is this, that, and all those stuff. But then we really need to kind of look at it, how exactly it is going to work on it. And if you're able to work on it, then we will be able to appreciate it much better. And I think if you're able to do that, we will be able to kind of contribute not only to self, but to the whole education community per se as such. And that's going to be very important for all of us to look for. How do we start? I think this is the one question which people keep asking me. I think keep it simple, start it simple. Aram se shuru karo, reflect karo, review karo, core team banao, and then start working on it. But cross-functional team is very, very important because you need senior people, but you also need youngsters who are much more well-versed to the challenges, whatever that has been happening in that kind of a environment. My request to all of us is in this particular forum is only this. Only this. Let's not feed our children as the life that which we ate as part and parcel of our own thought processes, because it's going to be very important for us. It's going to be very important for us to kind of look at and work on it. Let's try to unlock their brains to the truth so that they repeat the life of yesterday. Moral of the story is very, very simple. Soch badalo and instill right knowledge. Education will happen. Education will happen. And that's something very important for all of us to look for. And I always believe personally that I think learning is always lifelong. I think many of you will know this particular gentleman, Kadam Singh, and I think he's somebody who's at 114, still does marathon, still goes for marathon. So what is the moral of the story? Moral of the story is very, very simple. You have to go back and start working on saying that how exactly you have to continue to be lage raho. And that's the mantra. Ek tarah soch badlo aur lage raho, and the answers are there for transforming education. There is a chance now with NEP coming in. Now there is a chance to change with NEP coming in. And I'm sure the audience here, they are mature, quite mature enough. And, I always say, I always feel all of you are actually doing a great job, like I should say our defense people or army people who have gone outside the country, leaving your families, compromised on many things, and living in an environment where you are not even sure that tomorrow morning you may be asked to give in a passport and a ticket and say that tomorrow morning you're flying back. But you have gone there and trying to take care of that Indian diaspora out there. I think that's wonderful. That's wonderful. And I think please continue the good work, what you are trying to do. Let me take up any questions if there are anything. Otherwise, I think I would like to thank all of you once again for giving me the opportunity to be with all of you, to share some of my thoughts. These are purely experienced with the schools, colleges, universities that we are trying to work with. But what is the only good hope that is available right now is that new education policy, in the way it is being designed, if implemented, I think we are going to be ahead of many, many, many countries. All this is not only going to help us only with regard to this as a process, NEP as a process, but even this will slowly get connected to PISA. And if our performance in PISA is wonderful, we will be able to do the ease of doing business. There is a score which goes out globally. India is poised to become the world leader. With that particular note, namaste to everybody out there who are sitting across the Middle East region, and I'm open for questions, if any. You can put it in the chat box. I may take up, or I don't know what is the protocol which the organizers have.
Very enriching session. Your slides are self-explanatory and symbolic and speak volumes. I'm sure you'll share the slides with us as well.
I thought that those are only images. Fine, surely. I think I'll try to share what is best.
All right. And then
COVID also taught us one more thing.
Bahrain chapter. We'll ask a couple of questions from the Bahrain chapter.
Gopinath. I have one more thing. COVID also taught us something. It told us that you have to start thinking with your hands. You have to start thinking with your hands, because many people I know that who might have been kind of attending might have already taken screenshots of the images and the PPT. But I am not very sure how this particular screenshots gets implemented. So I think COVID also taught us that start thinking. That the simple reason is that start writing. And once you start writing, you will be able to kind of, work on it quite well. Yeah.
Gopi, basics. Yeah, you said it before. Yeah.
Gopi, your voice is echoing. Gopi, your voice is echoing.
All right, sir. Go back to the basics. This is what you were mentioning.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, a couple of questions from the Bahrain chapter.
Go ahead.
What are the 3 key points required for the principals? Because there's been a huge paradigm shift in the field of education. So what would you advise the principals? What would be the 3 key points?
See, when it comes to 3 key points, one, I will say that first thing is that go back and quickly make a small cross-functional team. Go back and first make a cross-functional team without bias, because that's something which is actually somewhere disturbing the school setup. So try to get some fresh energy and freshness into the campus. As Peter Sanjay very beautifully says, it is not about fear of failure. He also talks about, when it comes to education, he talks very brutally, fear of success. So don't try to look at the people who have been successful. So try to first is make a cross-functional team. That's going to be very important for you. The second important thing is that go back and start reviewing your practices. And best thing is read the NEP document, draft as well as this, both are the document. Don't read the 70 pages. Don't just read 70 pages. Read another 400 pages document which was actually done. And I think that's something very, very important for us to kind of look for. And the third thing is that make time bound. I know that KHDA expects and other boards, other regulator bodies expects you to make an action plan, but you really need to go back and contextualize to what is being done in Hamare environment. Because at the end of the day, the education is getting experienced in a CBSE environment. So please go back and start working on it. And 3 things, again, very, very important. Personalize, appropriate technology. Don't use a technology because there is one more school, which is your competing school. He has put a 65-inch display and you have put a 75-inch display. That is not about, sorry, that is not technology. The third important thing is that we really need to collaborate. And as much collaboration, and you already have a forum. You already have a very beautiful forum of Gulf Council as such. You have regional chapters happening. So you should be able to spend quite a lot of thoughts on that. Right. So focus on these 3 areas, reflect what's happening, don't go by past experiences. जो पहले हुआ था, 2 साल पहले हुआ था, अब वो नहीं हो रहा. And like people say, आपकी छाती को थोड़ा बड़ा करना. You may have to make your shoulders lit. You may have to go to gym to increase the width of your छाती, so that anybody who comes, you should be willing to hear. Because as much you will hear, that much refinement of the practices will happen. Because your teachers are actually struggling quite a lot. The teachers are actually struggling quite a lot in the classroom, and the kind of burnout which is happening, they may not be saying for multiple reasons, but really start working from that. So simple mantra is that create a forum, make a cross-functional team, spend a lot of efforts, on trying to uncollate what's happened. And then second important thing is that personalize the practices as much possible. And third one is more of technology, appropriate technology. Don't use technology doesn't mean a laptop. Technology doesn't mean a mobile. It is just a tool. It's just an infrastructure. So try to understand what will work, and then thereafter take it up. For this, I think you have a forum, so please go back and collaborate as much you can.
Thank you, sir. So you have been working with multiple schools across India and the Middle East. And then you mentioned about teacher burnout. Can you give few suggestions how to handle this teacher burnout so that we don't face attrition? Because attrition has been less because of the COVID issues.
Yeah, you may have to just give me 1 minute here. Just 1 minute. No, I probably. Why the power is not देखो अभी power. Yeah, 1 minute, please. Yeah. Yeah. So the first and the foremost thing is that. Yeah. First and the foremost thing is that go back and don't try to catch up things. Don't take please, when the teachers are now going to go for vacation, once they come back, don't ask them to open a textbook and start getting into classrooms. That's the first point. Second is start to, I don't know, a simple example. Somebody asked me in one of the conferences recently. I told them that how many of us have done this march past? When you do march past, you actually lose steps. When you lose steps, you repeat the step and then you again go back to the normalcy. So this year, spend time on repeating many things. And the easiest method would be that you will have MLL. So once children come back, do assessment based on the key concepts for that particular grade which child needs to know, then only you will be able to kind of look at some kind of assessments happening. So I think that's going to be very, very important for you to kind of look forward to. So please spend time on it and you'll be able to kind of get value out of it. Yeah.
Thank you very much, sir. We also have the Secretary of the CBSE Gulf Council, Mr. Maharaj Khan here, senior principals here, and I'm sure they will definitely ask you questions towards the end of it. We can openly forward to the other chapters to ask you questions.
Sure.
Yeah, please go ahead and ask any questions. Those who are attending virtually. Can we start with Oman chapter? Anybody from the Sultanate of Oman? The chapter convener or anybody representing the Oman chapter, please go ahead. You may unmute and then ask the question.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning, Dr. Senthil.
Good morning, Sanjita ma'am. Go ahead. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. I would like to ask you a question that what are your tips for the students, because you have analyzed, but these days children are very, very sensitive, and I find children very sensitive in this part of the world when they have developed this habit of snacking, going to the washroom, going to have water, or for any reason. Sometimes teachers find it very delicate to admonish them for these things, and because of this we find that children are losing focus, not able to sit for long and not able to concentrate.
Sanchita ma'am, I'll put the question in a little different way. Are the teachers losing focus? Are the students losing focus? Because what I found, the teachers are getting disturbed because the policies at the school levels are not very clearly defined, whether I'll allow somebody to eat in the classroom or not. It's a very simple practice.
No, sir, that I'm sure that policy is very, very much clear. But when it comes to frequent washroom visits or going to have water, most schools have not made any policy, because you can't say you can't go to the washroom or you can't.
Correct. That's what I'm saying. That the challenge will come in because the child is becoming very sensitive now. So if you're going to allow one child to go out for washroom and the second child never allow the second child, you will get into trouble, because that child is going to go back and talk to the parent and say, ki mere ko to nahi bheja inhone bahar. So that's where I said the consistency at the leadership level for few things. For a period of time, you may have to do a lot of flexibility So please tell your teachers, I think, and I think it's a good idea if some kind of a yoga, the teachers also need counseling. Forget about students. First, teachers ko counsel karoge, they are your delivery arm. And if they are, motivated sufficiently, I think rest of the things will happen. Bacha to learning loss sab baat kar. But how many of us are actually trying to talk about the teacher ki jo pareshani hai? How many are talking? I am not very sure about it. Really, I'm not very sure about it. And it feels quite disturbed when we try to see that, many people who are part and parcel of such, things, they are just going back to the same routines. Nobody wants to do that kind of an investment on teacher. जैसे कि नहीं जो कर रहे हैं ठीक है हमें मालूम है सब कुछ so it's not going to go back and first look at what are the challenges and instead of doing a quarterly meeting, try to do weekly meetings with your team. Weekly meetings करना शुरू करो so that you will be able to get a lot of data coming in और जो भी modification करना है and इन सबको करते समय एक चीज आपको बहुत important है that you are supposed to go back and have a parent orientation session. And in the parent orientation session, you are going to tell the parents that we are going to go back and experiment quite a lot of things because children are coming after 2.5 years. So if the child comes and tells you anything, please hear him out. Please hear him out. Because what we are seeing some of the samples is in a school which we work in Punjab, there's children, 11th and 12th. I can give you because those schools opened before you. We have, kind of very, very interesting thing. The children normally will ask 9, 10, 11, 12 will ask for ground jana. We want to go to ground, but they were going to ground, but not playing in the ground, but sitting in the shade and talking to each other. So they want time to
I think there is technological lapse there.
Yeah.
Just wait for a few minutes. Yeah. Meanwhile, Madam Abhilasha Singh has also raised a hand. And thank you, Sanjita Verma, ma'am, for the question.
so just to, sorry, I am in a hotel, so things are not in my control. I'm sorry about it. But I think it's very important to go back and have a lot of conversation. Children hear, children ask class teachers to create some time. Even आप लोग जब cultural activity, annual day celebration, you are having a zero period. No, like that, create one zero period in the first period or in the last period and spend the time with children to just chat, understand. That's going to be much more important than anything else.
Thank you, sir.
I hope I answered.
Madam Abhilasha Singh has a question.
Yes,
Please.
Abhilasha ma'am.
Good afternoon, sir. And I'm
Good afternoon.
sorry, I'm a little unwell, so I'm looking like something the cat dragged in. I'm really sorry for my turnout. Sir, first and foremost, a very warm good afternoon to the August gathering. And it's such a pleasure always listening to you because your inputs and what you share, we always have great takeaways from the session. I'm a big fan of yours. So
Thank
it's
you
really,
very
really
much.
lovely to have you here. So my question remains the same, which I asked last year also. I am a very big fan and proponent of co-scholastic activity. So a fine balance of academics with co-scholastic work, which we actually see. We want our children to develop as holistic development. We want to see holistic development in the school. So how do we lessen this burden of boards on the children? How do we guide the parents? Because till the time we have the parents, we have the schools pushing the kids into the books, burying them under books because the school result has to be tops. Till the time, the grade 9 to grade 12 will always be afraid of and unwilling to participate in school activities because that pressure from the teachers and from the parents always remains. So I have this big fight, a constant struggle and challenge in the school with my teachers because of course I as a principal we push for good board results, but at the same time paradoxal same time we also want our children to learn skills which they will not learn sitting in the classroom and just reading the books. So that balance of personality development is really affected because now that I hope everybody will agree that the inter-school participation then it comes from the senior end of the school because by the time the children move up and they have mastered those skills, and then these are the ones if unless it is exceptionally that middle school students are invited, but then I mean on a general level I hope everybody will agree that it is the senior students who represent the schools. But then when this board pressure, I have found it very difficult to get the children moving, the parents acceptance, and even sometimes the teachers also not willing to leave the children out of the class. So any tips for that, sir? And I would really love
Quick
to
thing is that patience and
Madam, can you be more
regularity.
specific? May I request your question to be very specific and shorter, ma'am, since we will
Sorry.
request others also to speak.
Sorry.
Sure. Quick thing is that first go back and spend time with your parents. That's very, very important because students don't require counseling there, only parents require counseling. Second is your teachers also require counseling because teachers always have this pressure. When you are a leader at the campus, don't ask for board marks because one of the challenges which you will have, I'm sure, कि आपको management के presentation में दिखाना है कि पिछले साल का क्या score था, इस साल का क्या score था. And all of us in this particular gathering will surely understand, except this particular point, that in last 2-3 years, we have only manufactured marks. We have not actual marks were not there. We have only manufactured marks and we have given it to students. It's a question of couple of years more. इतने साल आपने wait किया, 2 साल और wait कीजिए. Maybe 9, 10, 11, 12 का relevancy खत्म हो जाए. With the new education policy coming in and with the competency-based assessments, which what you call assessments and certification will take place, then obviously I'm sure that ये सारी कहानी खत्म हो जाए. because everybody has to go. Then again, the next challenge which is getting ready for you is the tuition centers. So be a little careful about CUET, because that is going to be the new area which people have started already venturing into. And don't be surprised by next academic year end, you will have guides available for them also. So get ready for that.
Thank you very much,
Thank you
sir.
so much,
And
sir.
we,
Thank you
we
so much.
also have the chapter convener of Saudi Arabia,
Yeah.
Dr. Shaukat Parvez here. So he has a question to ask you. Sir, please.
Good morning, everyone. Frankly speaking, I don't have a question to be asked to Senthil, sir.
Sir.
The notion of wisdom and the knowledge, and I was trying to get some benefit out of it. I want to express my thankfulness and gratitude. Sir, sometimes you speak for the Saudi Arabia. Mrs. Asima Sali, she has been, trying for a long period of time, me too also, but we couldn't succeed. I believe that soon we'll be able to get this source of wisdom in Saudi Arabia. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you, sir. Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Shaukat Parvez. May I request somebody from the UAE chapter to raise a question to Dr. Senthil Kumaran? Anybody from UAE chapter, please?
Good afternoon, sir. This is Suresh, Principal, Private International English School, Bharati Vidyavan, Abu Dhabi.
Yes, Suresh, how are you?
Yeah, all good, sir. So
Good.
I was really overwhelmed with the epigrammatic thoughts and statements that you did make, and also the presentation skill that you really demonstrated throughout your session. Great, sir. My question is this, you have been touching upon the fact that instead of producing knowledge, we should be going for producing innovation. And that really talks about a lot of paradigm shift from the rote learning to making the process of learning highly experiential and activity oriented. But unfortunate to say that my experience, whenever we had the discussion, final conclusion will be not all chapters, not all classes, not all grades can go for activity oriented classes is what the conclusion. Can that be accepted? What is the takeaway from your side?
See what happens, even the countries like Finland, which talks about phenomena-based learning and other excerpts, they also take only two projects in a year maximum. Integrated projects are only 2. Now, for every chapter, you need not have. There can be certain areas, there can be certain activities, concepts for where you really need to look at it. Otherwise, what will happen? Your parent is going to come back and complain ki pura din aap activity karate ho, padhate kab ho. So that's going to, so only in the process of the experiential and activity, what is the key element which you are supposed to look at is that what are the key concepts that you're going to take it up? Take all those key concepts and create one integrated project, and through that particular project have a right assessment rubric and good reflection. If you work on these 2 areas, you will be surely able to get the ideas. And some other time, I think, Suresh, you are free to, you have I can ask them to share my email ID, or we can talk on this in detail, because this is possible, doable. This is possible and doable, because learning can happen inside the classroom. Learning can happen outside the classroom. I was very surprised when many schools were giving homework when during online classes. Child was already at home. So, it's a home task. The definition itself, we are not even wanting to change from homework to home task. And the simple method is task at home, and discussion at school. Task at home, discussion at school. Start working on these models. You'll be able to appreciate.
Thank you.
Thank you, Suresh. Thank you for the question, Mr. Suresh. There are a few more who have raised their hands. We have Madam Asna Nafis from Qatar. Ma'am, please go ahead with your question.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Mr. Senthil. I just wanted to share a few good practices that our school has taken up post-COVID. First and foremost, this year is being treated very specially because it's a year to catch up with the losses that have taken place, the learning gaps. So we, frankly speaking, from grade 1 to 8 have kind of, come to a conclusion as to what chapters could be interrelated and taught, so that curriculum is reduced, the burden is reduced. 2, we have created academic fiestas where the children are going to come with have come to school without bags. It's a bagless week at school where children are doing small activities outside the classroom, not within the classroom. The corridors are being used for this purpose. And that has actually helped children to get back the interest in school and the focus on school. And we have also planned activities the kindergarten and the primary school, where there's going to be an entire week of, just activities and nothing else. No bags will be brought to school. And like you mentioned, the first thing that we did is, after we came up with our plans, we had meetings with the parents to convince them about the changes that we are bringing and why we are bringing, and saying that we cannot assure you that this is going to get us results. We are only attempting towards something. So the first term has successfully gone by, and it has been a huge success, the academic fiesta, from the mails that we have received from parents for the efforts that the school has put in to get children to come back and normalize to school. So I just wanted to share these things that you had actually in your presentation also mentioned. So we have actually taken up these activities, and it has given us results. It's borne us results.
Mantra is very simple, ma'am. Lage raho, whatever works in your given environment. That's all.
Thank you. Just thought I could share this.
Thank you, ma'am. And we have the Kuwait chapter remaining. There was somebody who raised his hand from the Kuwait chapter. Can we just track him? Yeah. I think it's from, Mr. Ravi. I think, Mr. Ravi from.
Good morning, sir.
Please, sir.
Good morning, sir.
Principal of CBSE Kuwait. Please go ahead, sir.
Yes. Yes, I'm attending from a vacation, but there's a very grateful. I'm very grateful to you, sir, for the wonderful session what you had. I have just one curiosity to know which school is the online school with more than 1 lakh students. Is it okay?
Not 1 lakh students, sir. 13,000 students, sir. 13,000 students.
Okay, yeah.
I don't know whether.
Which school is that, sir? Okay.
Sir, it is a. Okay, with the permission of the organizers, I'm using the name because I avoid as much possible. It is 21K. Okay. 21K online school. They're already there. And they're not only offering largest number of students right now.
Parents. Sorry, sir.
So they have went around the 13,000 plus students they already have, and they are growing like anything else. And only thing is only caution to all of you is 9, 10, 11, 12, still the affiliation is not there. So they are looking at NIOS as a model. So, but I know you are attending the session maybe from Kerala, looking at you. So Kerala already has a school which is running 100% NIOS open school. That also you are aware of. So there are people who are already running open school, and they're going to send the children to NIOS. And just for your information, for a simple statistics for many of the leaders, it's almost around 5 lakh students who are taking up on open school year on year, and the numbers are increasing. So get ready that there are a lot of students who are not going to come back to schools, but they would love to go to a NIOS to take up anytime, anywhere examination model.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
The floor is open for a couple of questions more. Is there anybody with any question? Otherwise, I'll pass on the mic to the chapter convener of Bahrain. Is there any other question, please? Ma'am, over to you, Madam Monica.
Thank you so much, Govinand sir, and thank you, Senthil sir. Pleasure listening to you today, and I must share with everybody that when first I talked to Senthil sir that we have this conference and we would request you to address the gathering of principals from all over the GCC countries. The first thing sir asked me was, why are you not calling us to Bahrain? I would love to come there and meet everyone. And that is when I told him, sir, unfortunately, this time we are going to hold a virtual conference. But next time, definitely, whenever we get a chance to host a physical conference, we are going to call you, sir.
Thank you very much in advance.
Thank you so much, sir, for accepting. And you can see, sir, from all the other chapters also, all the other principals, they have high regard, and you know so many of them. You were there, I think, as far as I could understand from the conference, you were there in the Kumaran chapter conference when they had it. So very soon we'll also be having you here. It's just a matter of time. But on behalf of the Gulf Council, sir, and especially the Bahrain chapter. We thank you from the core of our hearts. Such a lot of learning today, such a lot of takeaway. Thank you once again, sir. It was
Thank you very much, and best wishes to everybody. Continue with the good work, what has been done by all the leaders out there trying to cater to the Indian diaspora. I think that's something very, very important. So best wishes to everybody out there, and looking forward to seeing you in another forum sometime again. Bye.
Bye-bye, sir. Have a good day, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you, dear principals, for being a part of this first session today. We will meet